My father is a complicated man. He never married my mother nor any of the other women with whom he fathered children. In total, he has enough children to form a soccer team, and I, being the seventh, am positioned right in the middle. I might have been just another one of his daughters, easily overlooked, if not for the fact that I grew up to be quite beautiful. My mother is a minor actress, a decent start in the genetic lottery, but I seem to have inherited the best features from both of my parents, surpassing her looks. My appearance was so striking that from a young age I would be stopped on the street by talent scouts several times a day. My school desk was constantly filled with snacks and anonymous love letters, and the line of boys who had crushes on me felt long enough to stretch across the city. It was a strange sort of problem, and I often wondered how I could politely get them to leave me alone. Before I could figure out a solution to that minor annoyance, a much larger problem presented itself. My father's company was suddenly on the brink of collapse, facing a severe financial crisis. To secure the funding needed to save it, my father devised a plan that, while pragmatic for him, felt like a disaster for me. He decided to offer me to a powerful and influential man in the capital, Julian Vance. To make matters worse, my looks apparently pleased Mr. Vance a great deal. With what seemed like a simple snap of his fingers, my family's business was saved from bankruptcy. My father was ecstatic, and Julian seemed satisfied. I was the only one who was deeply unhappy with the arrangement. And just when I thought things couldn't get any more complicated, they did. I threw the positive pregnancy test into the small bathroom trash can, then hastily grabbed a handful of tissues, crumpled them up, and tossed them on top to hide it from view. I felt a wave of despair wash over me. I wanted to disappear. I was pregnant. My heart was pounding in my chest so hard, it felt like it might break free. What do I do? What do I do? A soft knock on the bathroom door broke through my panic. A deep, smooth voice called out, "Clara, why did you lock the door?" His voice was usually a comfort, but right now, it only amplified my irritation. I scrambled for an excuse. "I'm taking a shower," I called back, trying to keep my voice steady. "It's not like we haven't showered together before," he replied from the other side of the door. "Darling, open the door." Committing to the lie, I quickly shed my clothes, grabbed a towel to wrap around myself, and unlocked the door. The moment it swung open, before I could even fully register his face, he pulled me into a firm embrace. He held me tightly, resting his chin on the top of my head as the familiar scent of bitter orange leaves surrounded me. He began speaking before I had a chance to say anything. "Sweetheart, the woman you saw me with today was an old classmate from middle school. She called out my name, but honestly, I had forgotten who she was. I was just trying to place her, which is why I spoke with her for a moment. There's absolutely nothing between us. We weren't even friends back in school. I've never been in a relationship before you, and I've never had any ambiguous connections. I didn't say anything earlier because I thought it might be nice to see you a little jealous. Please don't be angry anymore." What was he talking about? I couldn't follow his train of thought. "I'm not angry," I mumbled into his chest. "Yes, you are," he insisted gently. "You've been in a bad mood." "That's just because my period is late," I said, the excuse feeling flimsy even to my own ears. I didn't have irregular cycles. Last month, for his birthday, he had made certain requests, and we'd spent an entire day and night together without leaving the house. In the aftermath, I had completely forgotten to take my birth control pill. I patiently wrapped my arms around his neck, looking up at him. "No, really, you're just imagining things." He lowered his gaze, his eyes searching mine. I blinked, trying to look as innocent as possible. "Really, I'm not upset." His brow remained furrowed. "You are—" I could see this argument was going nowhere, and I didn't have the energy to continue it. I tilted my head up and kissed him, my fingers moving skillfully to unbuckle his belt. But he suddenly pulled away, letting go of me completely. "Why does it always come to this?" he asked, his voice tinged with a frustration I didn't understand. With that, he pushed me away and walked out of the bathroom. I stood there, staring at my reflection in the mirror, utterly confused. I was, even without makeup, objectively pretty, and my figure was what most would consider perfect. It definitely wasn't my fault. What was wrong with Julian? When I came out after my shower, I didn't even get a chance to speak to him. He just grabbed his pajamas and went into the bathroom himself. I couldn't understand what he was so upset about. He claimed I was angry when it was clearly him who was mad. I lay down on the bed, pulling out my phone to play a simple farming game while trying to figure out how I was going to smooth things over with him later. Later that evening, Julian had a social gathering to attend. He sent me a message asking me to pick him up afterward. It was a simple task a driver could have handled, but he insisted that I be the one to do it. I suspected it was because he couldn't stand the thought of me being idle and wanted to give me something to do. So I went. I disliked the overwhelming smell of cologne and liquor that clung to places like that club. So I waited outside, having arrived early to make sure I wasn't late. The wait was long. I found myself squatting by the curb, watching a line of ants diligently carrying bits of food. I even opened a pack of cookies I had in my purse, munching on them and generously dropping crumbs from my new insect friends. Just as the ants had successfully transported the third crumb back to their tiny hole, Julian finally emerged. I looked up at the sound of voices. Standing at 6'2", he was taller than everyone else in his group. To his left, I saw my own father, who stood at 5'6", wearing a painfully obsequious smile. I picked up another piece of cookie, about to stand up and greet him, when a young woman suddenly ran toward Julian, lifting her skirt slightly as she moved. "Julian, you came to see me?" she asked, her voice bright and clear as she looked up at him with shining eyes. "Did you know I was coming back home today?" It was a reunion with an old flame. I slowly squatted back down and resumed watching the ants. It was surprisingly calming. I broke off another small piece of cookie. The ants immediately went to work on it. I felt a small sense of satisfaction. At least the ants in this neighborhood wouldn't go hungry tonight. As I was observing them, my phone vibrated in my pocket. I pulled it out and saw a message from Julian. "Darling, are you coming to get me?" "Coming," I typed back, watching ants. I finished the last of my cookies, dusted the crumbs from my hands, and stood up. "Julian, I'm here," I called out. He turned his head, his eyes finding mine, and immediately started walking toward me. I tried to walk toward him, but my legs buckled on the first step. They had gone completely numb from squatting for so long. We weren't far apart, and he quickly closed the distance, pulling me into a hug. "Darling, I missed you so much," he murmured. I opened my mouth to reply, but then I saw the same young woman from before, staring at me with a gloomy expression from a few feet away. Without thinking, I asked him, "Finished catching up with your old flame?" Julian frowned. "What are you talking about?" "Nothing, darling," I said, cutting him off. "Can we just go home? And please stop calling me darling. My legs are asleep and I feel awful. I think I might die." Without another word, Julian took my hand and led me to the car. During the ride home, I kept my head down, mindlessly scrolling through my phone and searching for quick remedies for numb legs. I ignored him completely. The silence was heavy and stretched all the way back to our apartment. By the time we arrived, the feeling had finally returned to my legs, and I was back to my usual self, eagerly tearing into a pile of packages that had arrived for me. I opened 2 of them and found they contained sanitary pads, which suddenly reminded me of a very important issue. I grabbed my phone and started to head out the door. "Where are you going?" Julian asked from the living room. "I've been inside all day," I said without turning around, "just going out for some fresh air." He didn't try to stop me. I made my way to the nearest pharmacy, bought another pregnancy test, and hurried back to the apartment to use it. The result was the same. 2 distinct lines. I was definitely pregnant. This was terrible. I felt like I wanted to die. I flopped onto the bed and rolled over, opening an app on my phone to search for information about abortions. I found a nearby hospital and scheduled a consultation. Appointment confirmed. Just then, Julian came out of the bathroom, freshly showered. I quickly closed the app and opened a game, wanting to look at him but not daring to meet his eyes. My mind was a chaotic mess. After my game character died for the 3rd time in a row, Julian wrapped his arms around me from behind. His lips trailed soft kisses along my neck, making me tickle. "Darling, you've stolen 12 glances at me in the last 5 minutes." Had it really been that many? I hooked my arms around his neck. "I'm looking at you." "Not just looking, kissing too," he whispered. I turned and kissed him. Julian was an excellent kisser. His lips were soft and slightly cool at first, but they would grow warm as we continued. He liked it when I took the initiative, but he always took control eventually, turning the kiss fierce and passionate. I gazed at him in a daze, my fingertips lightly tracing the line of his eyebrows and the curve of his eyes. He was so handsome, and his body was perfect. With parents this good looking, our child would probably be very attractive, wouldn't it? Leaning against his chest, catching my breath, I asked softly, "What do you think about illegitimate children?" He frowned immediately, his eyes filling with a clear look of disgust. Disgusting. So he found the idea disgusting. I'd better not even think about the baby. I was an illegitimate child myself. My child would be the illegitimate child of another illegitimate child. He must absolutely hate the idea. I thought for a moment, then pushed further. What if you had one? I wouldn't, he stated firmly. But what if, I insisted. He grabbed my wrist, pinning it gently above my head. I would take care of it, he said, his voice low. How? I asked, my curiosity mixed with a growing sense of dread. Make the mother and child disappear together. Before I could process the chilling implication of his words, he tore open my nightgown. Darling, he said hoarsely, I don't like this hypothetical. He pinched my chin and kissed me again, biting my lip with an intensity that was both suggestive and threatening. Keep making assumptions like that and I'll kill you. My mind went blank. Was he some kind of violent maniac, threatening to kill me over a simple question? I was momentarily stunned. Something wasn't right. Wait. Where is his hand going? I remembered reading that you couldn't do certain things during the early stages of pregnancy. I looked up at him with pleading eyes. I'm not feeling well today. Can we try something else? The bedroom was carpeted with a very soft rug. I got out of bed and knelt on it, looking up at him expectantly. Instead, Julian pulled me back up, frowning as he placed his hand on my forehead. You don't feel unwell. Are you sick? He glanced at the calendar on the wall, then pulled me into his arms. Your period is late this month. Does that mean you have cramps? He picked up the blanket and wrapped it around me snugly. I'll get you some ibuprofen. I quickly grabbed his arm. No need, it doesn't hurt. He stared at me for a long moment, as if trying to determine if I was telling the truth, before finally abandoning the idea of getting medicine. His warm hand rested on my belly, massaging it gently. Even though I wasn't having cramps, the gentle kneading was pleasant, and I started to feel drowsy. Don't you want me to help you? I asked sleepily. He nibbled on my earlobe, applying slightly more pressure than usual. Just sleep well. If you're not feeling well, don't be greedy. I wasn't being greedy. Why did he say such things? I was woken up the next morning by the sound of my phone ringing. I was groggy and reached out for it blindly, but I couldn't seem to grab it. Go back to sleep, darling, a voice murmured, and someone gently patted my back. I was so sleepy that I simply rolled over in his arms and drifted back into a peaceful sleep. When I finally woke up again, the first thing I saw was a pair of intense, dark eyes staring directly at me. Julian was watching me, but his gaze was different. Usually when I woke up, he would look at me with either desire or tenderness. Today his look sent a chill down my spine. Julian, I whispered, cautiously tugging at the sleeve of his shirt. What was wrong? He was holding my phone. He must have answered the call this morning. Was there something in the call that upset him? I racked my brain, trying to think who might have called me besides telemarketers or my father. The only other person was my mother's caregiver, but none of those calls would make Julian this angry. What was going on? He hooked a strand of my long hair with his fingertip, his voice a low rasp. Darling, is there anything you're hiding from me? I instinctively shook my head. What do you mean? He leaned down, gently lifting my chin with his other hand. Then can you tell me what the note in your phone about a checkup and abortion appointment means? Sweetheart, you're pregnant, aren't you? My blood ran cold. I had a habit of taking notes after researching things online, so I wouldn't have to look up the information again later. Yesterday, I had looked up which hospital department to go to and which doctor had the best reviews, then typed it all into a memo on my phone. Julian never went through my phone. It was filled with all sorts of random things. When we first got together, I was cautious, but after I realized he respected my privacy, I let my guard down. I had just written the note yesterday, and he had already found it today. My breath caught in my throat. Had he been checking my phone all along and I just never noticed? I was in trouble. I was in serious trouble, and he didn't mention the past, so I tried to focus on the present. I opened my mouth and immediately denied it. No. He let the strand of hair fall from his fingers, the rough texture of his calloused skin brushing against my cheek. He leaned in so close our foreheads were touching, our breaths mingling. His tone was dangerously calm. Is that so? Yes, I forced myself to say. My sister is pregnant. She asked me to go with her. I had just invented a sister out of thin air. Which sister? He asked, a hint of amusement in his voice. My fifth sister, thank you, imaginary fifth sister. I owe you one. Julian chuckled softly. It's her? I nodded vigorously. Yes, it's her. Once the first lie was out, the rest followed easily. You know how it is. Her marriage is miserable, and my father is being an idiot and won't let them get a divorce. When parents don't love each other, of course they would abort the pregnancy. Having the child would just be torture for everyone involved. I wasn't sure which part of my story was the mistake, but Julian's faint smile instantly vanished. He stood up with a cold laugh and didn't speak to me again. He was silent through breakfast, and I started to panic. Why was he so easily angered? He was mad yesterday, and he was mad again today. Had he grown tired of me already? The thought was unsettling. I decided to try and cheer him up. I stood on my tiptoes to help him with his tie, but he was so angry he didn't even bend down to make it easier for me. I wrapped my arms around his neck, hanging on him like a child. Julian, why are you ignoring me? He gently pried my arms off him and strapped his watch to his wrist. As he walked out the door, he said only one thing. Figure it out yourself. I couldn't be bothered to think about it. He was going out, and so was I. I changed my clothes and rushed to the hospital for my appointment. After hours of running around and waiting, I finally got the results. The report confirmed I was pregnant and that it was early enough for a procedure. I've scheduled the abortion for tomorrow, the nurse said. Come back then. I stared down at the report as I walked out of the clinic. There were so many numbers and medical terms I didn't understand. The only thing I could clearly read were the words confirming my pregnancy status. I sighed. I actually quite liked children. It was a shame. But Julian didn't like them. It was a destined connection that wasn't meant to be. Lost in my thoughts, I wasn't watching where I was going and bumped into someone. I instinctively apologized and tried to walk around them, but they blocked my path again. Clara Reed, I came here looking for you. Who was looking for me? I looked up in confusion and saw a vaguely familiar face. It was the woman from the other night, Julian's old flame. We found an empty table at a nearby coffee shop. I didn't like coffee, so I ordered a glass of milk. The woman across from me ordered an iced Americano. I couldn't imagine who would willingly drink something so bitter. I took a sip of my milk. She seemed to be waiting for me to speak first. I wasn't in the mood for conversation. She was the one who sought me out, yet she expected me to start the conversation. But she had bought me the milk, so I decided to wait her out. I would leave after I finished my drink. Seeing my prolonged silence, she finally spoke. My name is Sophia Hayes, and I am Julian's childhood friend. Oh, I said, taking another sip of milk. It was sweet and pretty good. I said I'm his childhood sweetheart, Sophia repeated, her voice a little sharper. I nodded. My hearing is fine. She saw that I was unfazed and opened her purse. I briefly wondered if she was going to pull out a knife and stab me. Thankfully, she didn't. Instead, she pulled out a check and slid it across the table toward me. I glanced down at it. A 5 followed by 6 zeros. 5 million. Here's $5 million. Leave Julian, she said. I paused for a moment, then asked, Are you serious? Julian was incredibly wealthy. He often spent more than $5 million on a single gift for me. It was hard to understand why Sophia thought this amount would be enough to make me leave. Of course, Sophia said, taking a sip of her coffee. All that effort you put into creating coincidental meetings, constantly putting yourself in his path, wasn't it all for money? Her gaze swept over me from head to toe, and she laughed derisively. What do you think he would do if he knew you'd been scheming from the very beginning? Clara, you'd better quit while you're ahead. Take the 5 million and disappear. If he finds out your true colors, your father's company and your mother's illness could both run into some unfortunate accidents. I looked up at her, my eyes lingering on her face for a moment before dropping back to the check. 5 million. It was enough for me to live on for a very long time. A gold digger should know when to quit, Sophia reminded me. But I pushed the check back toward her. There's no need to trouble yourself, I said slowly. Until he grows tired of me, I won't be leaving. My father's brilliant idea to sell me for money involved sending me directly to a man's bed. I was speechless when he first proposed it. My mother was sick at the time, and he was on the verge of bankruptcy. I had just graduated from college, and my salary was nowhere near enough to change our situation. I felt completely helpless. After a period of intense internal conflict, I decided to go along with my father's plan. I would become a gold digger. The first time, I was locked in a hotel room. The man who came in was Mr. Harrison Jr., the spoiled, late-born son of a wealthy family. He was extremely rich and apparently quite pleased with my appearance. I, however, was not pleased with him. Seeing him made me realize that not everyone was cut out for this line of work. Even if I were, I definitely couldn't do it with him. His beady eyes gleamed as he approached me, and the thought of what was about to happen terrified me so much that I climbed out the second-story window and ran. Afterward, my father screamed at me. Do you have any idea how furious Mr. Harrison is? Don't even think about me paying for your mother's medical bills anymore. My job paid decently for a recent graduate, but my mother's targeted therapy medication cost tens of thousands of dollars a month. Her illness had already wiped out our family's savings. My father, with his many lovers, didn't care about my mother. He only cared about me because my looks made me valuable. Now that I had failed him, he cut off all financial support from my mother and me. I sat by my mother's hospital bed, holding her hand and watching her sleep. I called everyone I knew and borrowed money to pay the medical bills, but I knew it wasn't a long-term solution. I started going through the list of men who had shown interest in me in the past. There were wealthy ones, but none who were willing to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars on my mother's treatment. I spent days trying to convince myself to go back to Mr. Harrison Jr. So what if he's unattractive? At least he has money. I finally managed to steel myself and attended a dinner party where I knew he would be, ready to approach him. But when I found him, he already had another woman on his arm. They were laughing together, looking like a happy couple. I even saw them kiss. I was completely shocked. Not everyone can earn that kind of money, I murmured to myself. It must be really hard for her. Someone beside me spoke. Indeed. My frustration surged, and I started venting to this stranger. Before I saw them kissing, I thought I could tolerate being with him. This might sound rude, but I genuinely feel a bit nauseous just looking at him. You were thinking about being with him? The voice asked. Yes, I considered it. But reality defeated me. I have no money. Now it looks like I'll have to find someone else. I started daydreaming out loud. Do you think there are any good-looking rich people out there? Gender, age, none of it matters, as long as they're good-looking. And single. I don't want to be a homewrecker, but people who are both attractive and rich are usually either not interested in a relationship or have some serious issues. Otherwise, who would pour money into a bottomless pit for a gold digger? They're rich, not crazy. I sighed deeply. I just pray the next one isn't uglier than Mr. Harrison. Yes, the person next to me said again. I turned my head curiously. Can you recommend someone? I'm very pretty. People have been telling me that since I was little. I'll give you a referral fee if it works out. I couldn't see the person's face, only their chest. They were so tall, probably 20 centimeters taller than me. I slowly looked up, and my eyes met an incredibly handsome face. He was so good-looking he could have been a movie star. Then I heard him say, "Me." I didn't understand. What? He bent down slightly to meet my gaze, a smile playing on his lips. Miss Reed, would you consider giving me a chance? That's how Julian and I met. Of course, my clueless father, seeing that I knew such an important man, tried once again to deliver me to someone's bed. This time, I didn't run away. Sophia had gotten her information from some unreliable source. It was all wrong. Julian knew from the very beginning that I was with him for money. He didn't care. For someone as wealthy as he was, spending money to have an attractive companion was a trivial matter. The problem that had been tormenting me was solved effortlessly. My mother was switched to a more expensive and effective treatment, and she was seen by specialists I never could have afforded on my own. Her tumor was in a difficult location, and previous doctors had said surgery was impossible. Julian brought in a world-renowned expert, and after successful surgery at the beginning of the year, she is now recovering well. These might have been small favors for Julian, but they meant the world to me. He was an incredibly kind person. I wouldn't leave him until he grew tired of me. Sophia couldn't make me leave, and neither could this child. I like children. Julian doesn't. So I would just have the abortion. It shouldn't affect our relationship. But recalling his probing questions yesterday, his harsh response, and the chilling look he gave me this morning, I knew it wouldn't be simple. An abortion is a minor procedure. I just needed to find an excuse to hide it from him. I touched my belly. It was such a pity. Your father doesn't like you. When I refused Sophia's offer, she threatened to expose my true colors to Julian. I ignored her, stopped by the supermarket to buy ingredients for dinner, and headed home. Julian had been so irritable lately. I needed to do something to cheer him up. I grew up in a coastal city, and I knew how to cook seafood well. Julian preferred lighter flavors, and our tastes in food were very similar, which was one of the reasons we got along so well. I fried 2 eggs and a piece of fish, planning to make a fish soup. As the fish simmered in the pot, I added the fried eggs. The soup turned a milky white and looked delicious. Just as I was covering the pot to add some lettuce, Julian came home. He walked into the kitchen and glanced at me, but unlike his usual greeting, he didn't come over to hug me, kiss me, and say, "Honey, I'm home." He was still really upset. I finished the last dish, stir-fried shrimp with asparagus, and brought everything to the dining table. Julian silently helped, carrying the heavy pot of soup. Once the table was set, I served him a bowl of rice and watched him expectantly. "Clara," he said, his voice calm but cold, "do you know where you went wrong?" "I don't know," I admitted. I had forgotten to try and figure it out. "Maybe you could remind me?" I suggested cautiously. He cast a fleeting glance at me and then started eating. "Let's eat first," I said, trying to sound cheerful. "The food will get cold." I scooped a bowl of fish soup for myself and took a sip. The fishy taste was overwhelming, and I felt a wave of nausea. I peeked at Julian. He was still eating calmly. Annoyed, I tried to swallow the soup. It was really fishy. I lowered my head and poked at the rice in my bowl, my appetite gone. Julian was ignoring me, and it was so annoying. I decided to try one more sip of the soup. I picked up my spoon, but just as I was about to bring it to my lips, he took both the bowl and the spoon from my hands. I looked up at him, confused. "If you don't want to eat, then don't," he said, his tone firm. He was being so fierce, not even letting me eat. I sulked. Then, his expression softened, and he ruffled my hair. "It's normal to be sensitive to smells during pregnancy. Don't force yourself to eat something you don't like." He picked up a piece of tofu with his chopsticks and held it out to me. "But you haven't eaten much. Have something else." "I don't feel like eating anymore," I mumbled. He pulled me onto his lap. "Good girl, open your mouth. I'll feed you." His tone was so gentle. I looked down at the tofu. I had made it, and my cooking was excellent. I took a bite, and he praised me. "Good job, you ate it all." This felt so unnecessary, like he was feeding a child. The mood had softened, so I wrapped my arms around his neck and whispered, "Darling, I want something else. Feed me." "Okay," he said, and fed me a piece of black pepper beef. It wasn't until after we finished eating that I belatedly realized what he had said earlier. "Pregnancy?" I stared at his back as he cleared the dishes. After he loaded the dishwasher, I hugged him from behind, pressing my face against his back. Are you still angry, brother? Julian turned around. Don't call me brother. He was still angry. He used to love it when I called him that, but now he was telling me not to. He suddenly moved closer, pinning me against the kitchen wall. An unusually forceful kiss followed. When he finally pulled away, there were tears in the corners of my eyes. Don't call me brother, he repeated, his voice low. Especially not when you're pregnant. If you don't want to die by my hands after the baby is born. Behave yourself. I blinked slowly. Is that all? He pinched my chin. What else do you want, darling? I didn't answer, just leaned against his chest. How did you know? I know everything about you, Clara, he said bluntly. Cancel your abortion appointment. I spent all day trying to figure out why I was angry, and then you went and scheduled an abortion and still dared to ask me why I was upset. You're the one who said you didn't like children, I muttered sullenly. I was just doing what I thought you wanted. He lifted me onto the kitchen counter. His palm rested on my belly, which was a little bloated from the meal. Clara, you should have asked me. I'm pregnant. Should we keep the baby? Instead of asking me what I would do if I had a secret child. I turned my head away. There's no difference. He cupped my face and turned it back to face him. There is a difference. Our child will be born in wedlock. He pressed his forehead against mine, his tone suddenly turning dangerous. Or perhaps, Miss Reed, you've never even considered marrying me. A pang of guilt hit me. I avoided his gaze. I really hadn't thought about it. I had always assumed he was only with me because he found me attractive. I was 25, and in this world there would always be someone younger and prettier. Men like Julian were in high demand. Just look at Sophia. If he wanted, a crowd of women would come running. It was just like how I had many admirers. But Julian had one highly tempting advantage over me. He was incredibly wealthy. It was obvious how many people must be interested in him. I knew that if we were married, I wouldn't be able to tolerate him being unfaithful, and it would lead to a very messy situation. So you can tolerate it now? Julian asked, his voice flat. No, I couldn't. I had been annoyed when I saw him with Sophia, but I felt like I didn't have the right to be. I shouldn't lose my temper with him. He was a good person who had helped me so much. I bit my lip. I'm sorry, he sighed. Darling, what are you apologizing for? I'm happy that you get angry because of me. He tucked a stray strand of hair behind my ear. I like it when you care about me? I looked at him in confusion. Why? Julian bent down and kissed me softly. Because I love you. Julian told me he liked the idea of our child and didn't want me to get rid of it. He explained he wasn't angry because I was pregnant, but because I hadn't told him, and my first instinct was to secretly have an abortion. He finally realized that letting me figure it out myself would never work. My guesses would only make things worse. Why did you deny it when I asked if you were pregnant? He asked. I curled myself into a tight ball in the corner of the sofa, my gaze drifting aimlessly. I felt like I was about to be scolded. I covered my ears. Don't scold me too harshly. I'm sensitive. Julian gently pried my hands away from my ears. I looked at him pitifully. Do I really have to listen? Fine, I'll listen. But if you make me cry, I'll go hide and cry by myself. I won't scold you, he promised. Really? Really? I looked at him for a moment to be sure, then reached out and hugged his neck. You didn't scold me. You're a good person. Julian lifted me up and clicked his tongue lightly. Where did you learn to hand out good person cards to everyone? Tell me, how many people have you given them to? Only you, I denied immediately. Is that so? I nodded vigorously. Yes. I've personally witnessed you telling 3 people they're a good person, he said coolly. Darling, making a habit of lying isn't a good trait. He placed me on the bed and took a pen from the drawer. The tip of the ballpoint pen rolled across my collarbone, tickling me. I looked down and saw he had drawn 2 small oranges on my skin. He stroked his artwork with satisfaction. Even though we had done far more intimate things, I couldn't help but blush. Darling, that's twice now. For every time you lie to me, you have to promise me one request. Okay, I stammered. What are the requests? The first request is... My heart was in my throat. Trust me a little more. I'm sorry for not giving you a better sense of security. He asked me to trust him more. I didn't know where to begin. He prompted me by asking what I did today and if I met anyone. I was about to make something up, but when I looked into his eyes, I couldn't bring myself to lie again. I hesitated for a moment. At the hospital, I ran into your childhood sweetheart. Julian's voice rose slightly. Hmm? I quickly corrected myself. No, no, not your childhood sweetheart. It's Sophia. I wrapped my arms around his waist and said sweetly, She was the one who said she was your childhood sweetheart. I was just repeating it. I didn't believe her. I actually had believed her, but then I remembered Julian had told me she was just a middle school classmate whose name he couldn't recall. He had asked me to trust him. I looked up. Brother, you want me to trust you, so you'll believe what I say too, right? He pinched my cheek, his eyes full of laughter. I believe you. I babbled on, telling him how Sophia had offered me $5 million to leave him. Did you agree, darling? Of course not. He patted my head. You finally did something right. Here's a little reward for you. I hesitated. Can we not? His rewards were often more for his benefit than mine. My cheeks grew warm. We should wait until after the first 3 months. He chuckled lightly. Your little head is full of naughty thoughts. He picked up my phone and waved it in front of me. On the screen was a text message from the bank confirming a deposit of $50 million. My jaw dropped. If you don't want it, I can take it back, he teased. I sat up straight and kissed him wildly. I want it! Julian, you're such a good person! He held me steady so I wouldn't fall. Darling, I'd rather hear you say something else. He stared at me intently. I slowly pulled back and whispered, I love you too. The first orange was his request for me to trust him more. It was something I hadn't realized I was lacking until he pointed it out. Julian was an open book with me. He told me everything I asked and kept me updated on his life. One Sunday afternoon, we were in his study. He was reading a book, wearing a pair of gold-rimmed glasses with a delicate chain that dangled at the side. He looked both refined and roguish. I noticed he hadn't turned a page in a long time. His Adam's apple bobbed as he asked, Darling, are you having fun? I smiled sweetly. Just keep reading your book. He loosened his tie and flipped the page, but his eyes were clearly flushed, and the veins at his temples were pulsing. When I had finally had enough fun, I snuggled into his arms. The book had only been turned 2 pages since he started. You're not being serious about your reading at all, I scolded playfully. Don't do this next time, okay? He intertwined his fingers with mine. Darling, just wait until the child is born. Wait for the child to be born. I had heard him say that so many times. I had accumulated so many debts with him that one more wouldn't make a difference. The future, Clara could deal with it. For now, the worst he could do was pin me down and kiss me. Seeing that I had no intention of continuing our game, he pulled out a thick binder. All right, now let's start choosing the wedding decorations. Which ones do you like? I felt dizzy looking at all the options. I like this one, and that one too. I want them all, I blurted out. How about we get married and divorced a few more times so we can use all of them? For that comment, I earned another mark on my record. I was just joking. His second request was for me to marry him. We didn't have a big ceremony. We just got our marriage certificate on an ordinary day. He woke me up early, saying he was taking me out to play. I was still sleepy and my mind was fuzzy as he carried me to the bathroom to get ready. Where are we going? I asked. You'll find out soon. We went to the Civil Affairs Bureau. Standing at the entrance, I asked him, Is this a place for fun? Yes, he replied without a hint of irony. Since we were already there, I ended up with a little red marriage book. Fortunately, his plan for the day didn't end there. In the afternoon, we went to an orange grove to pick oranges. I filled a whole basket and sneaked one to eat. It was sweet and delicious. I couldn't finish the whole thing, so I offered the rest to Julian. He took a bite. I ate the baby, he said playfully. No eating, just eating, I said, trying to grab the rest of the orange from his hand. He popped the last slice into his mouth. I pounced on him. At least save a piece for me. He caught me easily. There's none left. I ate every bit, sweetheart. After playing all day, I was so tired that I fell asleep leaning against his shoulder on the ride home. The autumn sunlight was gentle, and I had a very peaceful sleep. I dreamed of my 17-year-old self, carrying books as I walked through the grove on my high school campus. Ripe oranges hung from the branches. I reached out to pick one, and my fingertips brushed against someone else's. In reality, I would have apologized and walked away. But in my dream, I looked up and saw a familiar, though slightly younger face. He smiled and asked me, "Clara, do you still remember me?" I don't remember him. At the banquet, she was following a couple like a shadow, peeking at them from behind pillars. The woman was pretty, and the man she called Mr. Harrison looked like a blobfish. She followed them, and I followed her. After a short distance, she stopped, a stunned expression on her face. I glanced over and saw the couple kissing. I heard her murmuring to herself. When I spoke to her, I realized she'd actually considered being with that man because she needed money. If a blobfish was an option, why couldn't I be? I made my move. "How about considering me?" I asked. She thought I was just another man captivated by her beauty. That wasn't it at all. She had simply forgotten me. She probably wouldn't remember that when she was a little girl, living with her mother in a small southern town. There was a quiet little boy who lived downstairs. Nobody ever talked to him. Only she would. "Big brother, I'll share some candy with you. Mom bought me a big bag today. It's so sweet." "Big brother, Mom made cookies. Here, try one." "Big brother, these are oranges I picked today from the orange grove. They're delicious. My name is Clara." She was friendly with all the kids in the neighborhood, striking up conversations with everyone she passed. She was just being herself. I was just one of many. She doesn't remember, but that doesn't matter. I kissed her as she slept soundly in my arms. "Darling, call me brother," I whispered. She murmured drowsily in her sleep. "Brother, stop it. I'm sleepy." The autumn night was tender, and she was in my arms.